Wow, what a lovely full room. I didn't expect all these people. It's lovely to see you all here. So, good afternoon. My name's Deborah, and I'm here from Ginkgo Financial. We're just up the road from you in Blackheath Royal Standards, so we're just sort of straddling Lewisham and Greenwich.
Yeah.
Yes, you might have seen our office on the corner by the church. So we were asked here today by Imago to add a little bit of information to today's wonderful Carers Day about financial matters, because I know carers, you do an amazing job, but money is often an issue for people. So we're here today not to give one-to-one advice, but to give you some general information and some hints and tips that we hope you all will find useful. And I'd like to introduce you to my panel here today. It all sounds a bit like question time, doesn't it? No hecklers, okay? You're allowed to heckle if you want to. So this is Darren. You can especially heckle him because he's my husband. So we founded the business together 13 years ago. Darren is a chartered financial planner, and he's been advising people at every stage of their life on managing their money for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's why he's here. The lovely Rachel is another one of our financial advisors. Rachel has got an amazing background in care. Before she became a financial advisor, Rachel worked in policy for Age Concern and Age UK, and then she ran community projects in East London for dementia and older people. And she has personal experience. You cared for your mother before she passed away, and now you're a parent carer for your daughter Isabel. So a lot of first-hand experience as well as financial knowledge from Rachel. And the lovely Amy here. Amy is our office admin. The office would not run without Amy, all things technical. But as well as being our technical whiz kid, Amy cares for her own mother. And we actually found you when you were working for another caring organisation. So personal experience and professional experience. We're going to keep it really simple. We've got 3 themes we want to talk about today. The first theme is about organising your affairs, lasting powers of attorney, things like that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about money, managing money, benefits, and then we are going to talk about how you can protect your family in the future, mostly through wills. What I've done is, or rather my lovely assistant, Kelly, who's organised today, has put some postcards and pens. If you have any questions, if you could just jot them down, then we'll collect them in and we'll deal with questions at the end so that we can keep everything flowing in that way. Also, if you'd like any information from us after the event, we've got some literature here that you can take. There's details on the back there. If you're very digital, there's something called, it's like a QR code that you can scan and it will take you somewhere to sign up. Yeah? Otherwise, you can phone us, you can email us, you can grab one of us and say, please can I fill in your further information form, and we can send you some resources after today as well that you might find useful, or information about other events that we're holding. So that's kind of the shape of today. So let's just get straight into it. And the first theme for today is what happens if something happens to you. And caring is so all-consuming. Your focus is so much on the person that you are caring for. Sometimes we forget about ourselves. And the analogy I like to use, it's like when you're on an aeroplane and they do that safety briefing and they always say, please put on your own oxygen mask before you help anybody else. That's what we need to be doing as carers, and we don't often. So I think the first question, and I'll put this one to you, Darren, what is the single most important step a carer can take?
Hi everybody, I'm Darren. In essence, we feel the most important thing a carer can do is to have their own power of attorney. We come across a lot of carers who are caring for someone that might be under a power of attorney that the cared for person has, but the carer doesn't have a power of attorney themselves. And what that actually means is, if heaven forbid something happens to the carer, then the whole situation will fall down. You'll have to go to court protection and get deputies and all sorts of issues, very expensive and time consuming, which will have a huge impact on the person you're caring for, because they will no longer have a carer. So it's really important that you have your own power of attorney in place. Also, something we find a lot, which is really important, is people tend to care for a partner or a loved one. And we've had a lot of clients go, well, yeah, I'm caring for my husband, I've got a power of attorney. And we say, who's the attorney on your power of attorney? And they go, oh, my husband. So obviously that person couldn't be their attorney because they've already probably lost mental capacity, or they're at the stages they're being cared for. So it's really important to change, update any power of attorney to make sure that it's someone that you would want to look after you if, heaven forbid, you fall into the needing a carer as well. So that is a really key thing. And when problem we find, a lot of people do power of attorneys but don't register them with the Office of Public Guardian. And then when they do need to register them, they find there's an error on the form. And Amy will talk about this, she does all of our power of attorneys for clients, and we're good at it, and we still have how many come back? Half of them? Half of them get thrown out first time round. But because we're doing it ahead of it being needed, we got time to go back to the client, get it adjusted and changed and resubmitted. Whereas if you've left it in the drawer to be registered at some day in the future, and then person loses capacity, you send it off to the Office of Public Guardian, and then they go, oh, you spelled something wrong or you've signed it wrong, they'll just throw it out.
So how do you know then that, okay, assuming you know that you shouldn't just leave it in the drawer, how do you know that it has been registered correctly and you've got the proof, if you like?
You get a number, it gets stamped, and you get a 16-digit number?
Yeah, so you get a 16-digit code, it's a registration number, and this enables yourself and your attorneys to access it online. So even if you don't have the original copy or an office copy of the original copy, you're able to access it online, and you can then send that around to providers, whoever you are dealing with.
Yeah, that's the key thing, making sure you... Yeah, sorry, fire away.
Excuse me. Who do you register? We've got a lasting power of attorney for both of us.
Yeah.
And our daughter does that.
Yeah.
So, who do we register?
Office of Public Guardian. It has to go. You fill out the paperwork, and then that goes off.
She's probably done it.
Yeah, Office of Public Guardian. They charge £82, I think.
Yeah,
it is.
£82 registration fee, but that's depending on if you're on. So the fee depends on if you're on low income. So if you're on low income, you get 50% discount on the fee. Or if you're on certain benefits, you qualify for 100% off the fee, so it's completely free. You just got to fill out the form and send it off.
That's really good to know, because I think the fee might put some people off.
Yes.
Yeah.
They might think, I've filled out the form, I haven't got
Yeah,
that
you've got
money
to
at
do
the
it,
moment.
I didn't realise we had to do that.
Yeah.
We've done it ourselves actually.
You filled it in, yeah.
It took a year to do it.
Yeah,
I thought
cheap
we should
enough
have gone
to do
to a
it,
solicitor in the end, but it was to and fro.
If there is any way, do not do it on the government side.
we do it for clients. Amy's an expert at filling the forms in.
Yeah.
Do the form.
Oh, it's appalling.
So we need to now.
Yeah, just make sure
You may have done it, but you should have registered it. You would have sent it all off to the Office of Public Guardian.
That's an interesting point when you say don't do it with a solicitor. Is it a good idea to appoint the solicitor as one of your
this was with the
guardians?
government
Online.
website.
Yeah,
It's just a
If we
joke.
realised, we would have gone to a solicitor.
Yeah.
It was so long-winded and it took ages.
It does.
We kept sending it back, we've done it wrong.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
a mess. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take a couple more questions to the lady there first and then you check after, sir.
Well, mine was just asking because it has to do
Yeah, so in essence, you're going to pay more because you're going to pay for a solicitor to do it. It is quite expensive because there's so much paperwork. It's literally like 20 pages for each, and you need to get both power of attorney. You need to get the financial one and the health and welfare one as well. Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, there is an option to save the power of attorney to paper, to a form.
Yes, yeah.
And you just send it in by post.
Yeah,
So it gives you enough time to look at it.
we do exactly that. I mean, having said that, they've lost how many? Two or
About
six now. We've sent the paperwork in, all stamped, proof of purchase. They've even signed for it, and then they've told us they lost it
Yeah.
many times.
I
So
think the lesson is you've got to follow it right through.
yeah,
Until you've got that code, you cannot be sure that it is registered.
and the key is do it early, not when someone's starting to lose mental capacity.
Yes.
And especially when you are a carer, you've got that double incentive to make sure you've got it, because if something happened to you, the person you're caring for is going to have
That's
serious problems.
really useful information. Rachel, is there anything else we should be thinking about apart from a lasting power of attorney?
Well, the other thing that's worth mentioning, so it's a really important thing about, is what would happen if you suddenly become unable to carry on with your caring responsibilities. So, course, the power of attorney is really, really important, but then there's also situations to think about which we don't like to, which is if someone becomes, if you're the carer and something happens to you, and then you need care, say you have, some kind of medical issue, a heart attack, a stroke, diagnosis of cancer, it's really trying to think about those things earlier on. So tackling those difficult situations and thinking about, well, what would happen to me and what can I do to make sure that I'm protected, also the person that I'm caring for is protected. So one thing that we often talk to clients about is making sure you've got the right protection or insurance in place. So one thing to think about is critical illness cover. So that's a kind of insurance or protection that pays out a lump sum. So if you were suddenly to find that you couldn't fulfil those caring responsibilities, obviously there's going to be financial liabilities that carry on. There might also be a situation where you're having to think about paying somebody to do that care that you've been providing free of charge. So you've got all of your day-to-day living costs, but then you've also got to think about, well, what if we need medical equipment for me, care for the person that I'm caring for. So critical illness cover is always worth thinking about as well. That's something that we can help with, or
Yes.
So lots of carers tend to have already had their own illnesses and caring for.
yes, that's a big issue, that isn't
So
it?
what if critical illness cover sort of essentially and say, oh, we've already got an illness, so we can't come on to
Everybody's looked at individually.
Each one's looked at individually, but it's also, I know that's something that does worry people, but what I would say is it is always worth having a look. There are different companies offer different things, and there are companies that do, offer policies for people who might have conditions already. There's one in particular that offers a kind of insuring, offers a policy that's particularly aimed at insuring people that other providers might not be so keen to cover. So there are options out there, so it's always best to just have a look. I know that's a big concern. Often you're right, people who are caring have their own issues because they've maybe already be pre-existing, or they may come with age, or the kind of strains and stresses of caring themselves. So it's always worth checking.
It could just be one of those awful random things. We
Yeah,
actually had an example this week with a client, didn't we? Poor lady who was a carer and said she was hit by a car.
She got run over.
Yeah.
So she's caring for her husband. He's in a hospital bed in the lounge, so that's how much assistance she needs to give him. And then she got run over. She's been in hospital for 3 days.
And her,
So the whole
her LPA isn't registered.
No.
So obviously,
her solicitor was doing it.
Yeah.
We didn't do our LPA. Her solicitor did it, but hadn't registered it.
I've got another story like that. My mum was unwell for 2 years with motor neuron disease, and just about 3 months after she was diagnosed, my dad was admitted to hospital with a suspected heart attack. And we were suddenly, oh my God, I had, a 6-month-old baby, and it was, luckily he was fine and he was out the next day, but there was a period of about 12 hours where I was kind of thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do here? 3 people to look up. So it is, think about those things as horrible as they are before they happen, and get the kind of right cover in place early.
That's great, thank you. So, moving on then to our next theme, money and care, the invisible cost. It's not really that invisible. An awful lot of carers, they earn less, or they're not able to work at all. They're spending more than the average person would do, and then on top of that, you're having to navigate an absolutely mind-boggling benefits system. I know Amy's our sort of in-house expert on the benefits system. We're always, how do you do this? How do you do this? So what do you wish more carers knew about benefits?
I wish there is various support out there. There's so you can depending on if you work or not, you can qualify for carers allowance, which is they normally pay it weekly, which is around £151 a week. and if you work, you can qualify for carers credits, which are credits on top of your NI. You also can, the person that you care for can qualify for benefits such as attendance allowance or PIP, or if it's a child that's under the age of 18, disability living allowance. And an easy way to find out what benefits you qualify for is going on the government website. There's also a website called Turn to Us, which will show you what benefits you do qualify for, and really just make sure that you check what benefits you can qualify for, and don't assume you don't qualify, because there's things that are there to help you being a carer that you may not know that you have access to.
I suppose it can be quite off-putting, and
Yeah.
maybe people think, I can't deal with this,
Yeah.
but do. So,
Yeah, it's just a question. You said turn to us, the other one's entitled to.
Yes.
But with both of them, they don't share your data, which is important.
Yeah.
That's-
Yes,
it
that's
doesn't
right.
go in.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that
Yeah,
is
that's
very
correct,
good to know.
Yeah.
Yes,
Lady,
lady.
You are saying that carers credit if you care for someone, but suppose you don't pay NI anymore, where will that credit go?
Yeah, it's a credit. It's to give you state pension benefits and things like that as well. You get a credit on the NI.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
it-
I don't pay NI anymore. It exempt when you start to get state pension,
yeah, it's to help you get your maximum state pension credit.
or is on the
The NI will give you a credit towards
credit towards the
that.
state pension.
Yeah, because if you're not working, ordinarily you don't get a year's worth of credit.
They normally swap it. If you hit state pension age, they normally just move you straight on to either the carers element in universal credit or carers allowance, and you'll get that paid weekly.
And the resources that we talked about, the online resources, is there anywhere where you can actually go and have a human being help you fill out these forms?
So there's various centres, and one of the centres that I would recommend going to would be the local carer centre in either Greenwich. Lewisham have one as well, and they will go through everything with you, including you'll have an advisor that will go through all the forms with you, and will sit down with you and just talk you through all the legal jargon.
I'm sure there's a lot of that. I'm sure there is. So, benefits obviously really, really important. If you're in a position, and I know an awful lot of carers aren't, but where there is a little bit extra, and you want to put something away for a rainy day, start protecting yourself against the future in that way, what advice can you give, Darren, to help people manage their cash?
So budgeting is always where we start with all of our clients. It's really important to budget and make sure you're not overspending. Most of the bank accounts now have different pots. I don't know if you've seen those on your bank accounts. Really helpful to have a pot for food, a pot for holidays, a pot for all sorts of different elements to keep your budgeting tight. If you've got extra money, obviously looking for good interest rates on bank accounts and a deposit account. A lot of people focus on going and getting a cash ISA. They're not always as good as they sound. Banks can be quite pushing, selling you a cash ISA, but the interest rates tend to be not as good as some of the deposit accounts that are available. And unless you've got more than, say, £15,000 or £20,000 saved, you don't pay any tax on your interest anyway. So you've got the first £1,000 of interest a year is tax-free. So you don't need a cash ISA. So it's a main focus. We say, we get so many clients come in and say, I've got a cash ISA, it's paying 2%. And then you look at the deposit account with the same bank and it's paying 3.5% or 4%. And they've gone for the cash ISA thinking it's better, and they wouldn't have paid in any tax anyway. So it's really important, and if you can use an internet, as a website called Raisin, as in after the fruit, and it's got lots of different bank accounts and access to bank accounts on there. You can select really good interest rates to keep your money working as hard as possible. And the last thing is money's like a leaky tap. It always keeps disappearing, yeah, and it's really important and really helpful that every 2 or 3 months go through everything, find them subscriptions to Netflix that you haven't watched for 2 or 3 months. We do it. I do it myself, you know, all the time. Especially with my wife, she might sign up for some sort of thing. What's this? Is this subscription? £2, that £3.
I did go through my subscriptions
Yeah.
last night,
You did,
actually,
yeah.
and I found several, and I thought, what on earth is that?
It's just every company wants to get you on some sort of subscription. So yeah, do keep checking that you're paying for what you're using. So yes, like.
Yeah, I've got a question. When you're talking about subscriptions, although it might be kind of slightly to the side of it, my will, there's the company that had done it, and then they keep it and you pay like £2 something. Now it's gone to maybe £3 something.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, is
Yes,
that
not necessary. Yeah.
That's what I was
So
asking.
in essence, we do a lot of wills. We do wills all the time, and you know, nowadays a good will company will not only do the will, they will also do a computerized copy of the will, and again you get a reference number, and that is saved in an electronic vault somewhere. So if heaven forbid the will was destroyed or lost, you can use that reference number, and that sealed copy in the vault is legal. Yeah, it's been held up in court on many occasions now. So the need to pay for storage of a will is just another subscription that you just don't need. Ask them to send you the will back, keep it safe. They should have registered it if they're a good company, but unfortunately a lot of these will companies, that's how they make their money. They make their money by doing it cheap and then charging you, you know, £12 a year, £3, whatever it is.
It's gone up. It was
Yeah.
2 something.
All of a sudden that's 50 quid a year sort of thing, and then you're like, so no, we don't advise paying for will storage anymore. We have got an arrangement with our will company for good deals for people to do wills, but the thing is, it's all done electronically now. We don't need to pay. It's just another.
So if it's already done, then I would contact them and say.
Ask them to send it back,
Yeah.
and save the money, and ask them did they keep a digital copy, and they might say yes, they might say no. So your choices are, you keep the will, you give it to someone you trust, so it's not on your, because really the risk is the house burning down, you dying and the will being destroyed. But generally if you give it to someone else, i.e. executor in a sealed envelope, that's probably safe enough. If you are very concerned, come and get a will done with a proper company, it's going to have it digitally recorded, and then you won't have to pay for the storage.
So thank you for that question, because that segued me really nicely into section 3, which is about wills and probate, protecting your family. And you know, for many people, making a will is something that we put off. Guilty as charged.
Yes.
That's a job for this week, I know. But there are so many problems if you pass away or somebody you're caring for passes away without a will. So, Rachel, you run our probate department. What sorts of things can go wrong if there isn't a will?
Well, yes, so the first thing is, and it's one of the first conversations we always have with clients, is have you got a will in place? Is it up to date? The 2 big things: make sure you've got one in place in the first place, and is it up to date? So one of the key things that can go wrong is if it's not up to date and it doesn't reflect life changes. So say if you're in a new relationship, or if someone's passed away, or your views about where you want your money to go or your estate to go have changed. So one of the first things is always to make sure that it's up to date. If you don't have a will in place, it just makes life for people who live behind much harder. It makes everything much slower. Causes unnecessary delays. You know, it's already can be quite a long process anyway going through probate. If you haven't got a will in place, it means that it just takes much longer to interpret the estate and make sure that everybody's happy with decisions. It can lead to arguments and conflicts, mess in terms of, you know, that might be informally in terms of conflict between siblings, children, you know, children from a previous marriage. And that can just be, you know, big kind of informal mess, but it can also then escalate to kind of big legal problems as well, which again cause huge delays. I had a client a couple of weeks ago that I spoke to, and where they'd had a problem with the will being, you know, wasn't up to date, and contesting the will, and it had taken 3 years just to get things resolved, and you know, people left not speaking, relationships ruined, and so it's just really, you know, it's the last thing that anybody wants to be left behind. So really important to get that sorted. The other, you know, risk with not doing a will is that your assets go somewhere that you don't want them to go. So laws kick in about kind of, you know, of your hands, but it's out of the hands of the people that are left behind then as well. So if you haven't got that written down, exactly what you want to happen, that's another big risk. And it just can, big complications that don't need to happen and slow everything down. So it's really important to get.
I think the point about keeping it up to date it is a really good one as well, because you might think that nothing has changed, but it might not be something in your control. When my own mother died, 3 daughters, the will just said, I'm splitting it 3 ways, no problem whatsoever. But she'd made the family solicitor the executor. And when I phoned him up, he said, well, I'm 85 now and I've lost my sight. I can't do this anymore. And I said, oh, fine, can you just appoint someone else in your firm? No, I can't do that. So then that left my elder sister as the executor, but she wanted to buy the family house, so she had a vested interest. So there was complexity that you would never have imagined, just because my mother had made the will, stuffed it in the drawer and not looked at it for 20 odd years.
I think that's the key. Keeping it up to date is so important, and one of the things we never put a solicitor as an executor. It's something solicitors and will companies have been known to do this as well, because if they're on the will, not only can you not take them off, they will charge whatever they fancy charging, and you can't get a competitive quote. They'll just go, well, we're going to charge 4% for doing the probate, and some of these solicitors are vast. We literally we do probate, Rachel does our probate, we're generally a third to half the cost of what a solicitor will charge. And we see some of their fee structures and it's like £20,000 for doing that. And we're like, well, there's only an estate worth £500,000 and they want £20,000 for doing it. So it's never a good idea to have a solicitor on the will.
And also, they'll just do it in the most simplistic way.
Oh, yeah.
In my own experience, it was like, well, then we need to liquidate everything and split it 3 ways and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't have the knowledge of the intricacies of the financial management to be able to do something a bit more sophisticated.
I think that's it. I mean, a lot of simple, if you've got a small estate, doing a will yourself will work. But as soon as your estate's making more than £400,000 or £500,000, there's all sorts of nuances you can put in a will to help reduce inheritance tax, which is getting more and more all the time. We put in what are called nil rate band trusts and lifetime interest trusts and these sorts of things you can do to try and manage the inheritance tax. And having a financial advisor involved is probably more important than a solicitor, because we understand the numbers and we're trying to make it as tax efficient as possible, whereas a solicitor will just go, oh, just look into each other. It's fine.
I mean, that's the other thing about not having an accurate will up to date, is if you don't have that, nobody's thought about that before, you're not going to be achieving that kind of tax efficiency. You're going to be, the Office of HMRC will just take the, whatever tax is due, whereas that's something you could be thinking about in advance and saving some money for people that are left.
So if you own a house in
if
London,
you own a house, really,
these are things that you
should be looking at and making sure that it's accurate as
if
well.
you don't and your affairs are quite small and quite simple, would it be okay to use one of these? There's a will week, isn't there, where people are offering free wills.
A lot of charities offer free wills, which are great. They tend to want a donation to the charity for doing it. But again, if it is very simple and straightforward, it's fine. But as soon as you do an estate, any house around here is going to cause a possible IHT issue. So you really then need to get advice and get it set up properly. Something else I'd like to mention, some people want to cut people out of a will. For whatever reason, the family member they don't like, we would always say make sure it's in the will why you're cutting them out, because they will contest it. And generally, you don't have to tell anyone what's in your will, but we would recommend you do keep everyone in the family abreast of what you intend doing, if that's possible, because the more everybody's aware and the more information in the will, the less likely it will be contested, because trust me, we have seen wills contested for all sorts of things. And if you just leave somebody out, they will probably win in court if they can prove that was what they were expected to be in the will. So it's a good reason in the will why you're not giving it to them.
Rachel,
They've seen it, done it.
Yeah,
Can you talk more about, was it trusts?
Trusts, yeah. So we could talk all day about trusts. We use a lot of trusts and become a lot more. But yeah, I mean, using the will to create trusts or using trusts in life are really important to protect money from long-term care, inheritance tax. So we have about 20 different trusts that we use. but it's a really important part of financial planning. And more so now with Rachel Reeves and her big hands taking everybody.
But I imagine that's something that you do need to take professional
You do
advice
need, yeah,
on.
it's absolutely, it's complex, you need advice from us, from the solicitors and people, yeah.
In this Rachel Reeves speech, what did she say particularly?
Oh,
Was there any changes?
Not today, I'm talking really at the moment from the budget, putting pensions into inheritance tax is been a massive issue that we called, freezing all the IHT allowances for more years, and then looking at changing it again in the next autumn budget to actually take more money in inheritance tax, maybe even changing the rate, changing the thresholds. It's a definite money grab on inheritance tax. Yeah.
Rachel, we've said it's important to keep a will up to date. Once you've got one, how often should you be reviewing it?
Oh, I mean, I'd say at least every 3 to 5 years, really. Yeah, you want to be making sure. Yeah, even if it's just a quick glance, let me just check. There's nothing springs to mind. Just get it out the drawer.
Yes.
Open up the envelope. Just have a quick check. Make sure that there's nothing significant changed and that everything's correct. Making sure that you've got it all put together correctly, so it's not going to cause any problems.
If you've had a will company do it, they will normally do a change for very low cost. Yeah, we got this £50 or something to change, make a change. So we always say to people, review it.
Yeah.
If something changes, just let us know, and it'll just be a small edit, and we'll get new rules out. So it's really worth it.
Yeah.
If you've done your will, say freeing wills
Yeah.
or something like that, I mean, can you just put a note in the margin? I've seen it in Agatha Christie.
No, there's a lot of things that go wrong with wills.
Yeah.
Most people do exactly that. If you write on a will, technically the whole will is invalid. Yeah. If you staple it, 2 pages, stapled together, that's invalid because it's not a permanent binding. It can be taken off. Therefore, you don't know how many pages are supposed to be in it. So it should be a permanent seal. So we have proper seals. If there's more, normally there's like 3 or 4 pages. There's all sorts of things. People who do their own wills and things they just throw them out. 2 witnesses. We've had instances where the person got the will signed by his 2 friends. One was a work friend, one was a personal friend. They'd never met each other. The family contested it and proved that the 2 people could not have been in the room at the same time to witness it. So they threw it out because he cut the family out because he hated his family and he left it to other members of the more distant family, and his grandchildren successfully sued and got all the money because they proved that the 2 witnesses didn't sign at the same time.
It's more complex than you think.
It's a minefield.
I used to think you just went into the post office and you bought one of those will packs, filled it in, put it under the mattress, that's your own thing. Clearly not.
What if one of the witness dies?
No, that's okay. That'd be not okay for them.
One of the witness that witnessed the will has died. What would happen to that will?
No, that's fine. The will's still valid. The key with the witnesses is at the time that you signed it, were they both standing there with you, and everyone signed at the same time in the same room. But it's if your will's quite straightforward, okay, you can make it tax efficient, but you are leaving it all to your children and grandchildren, and there's nothing controversial, probably be okay. But if you're going to do anything which you think anyone can think is controversial, then you need to make absolutely belt and braces you've done it properly. If you just leave someone out, you're going to have a problem.
Can the solicitors be witnesses?
Yes, yeah, anyone can be a witness, over age 18, anyone can witness it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Any other questions? We've got any questions?
I've got a few that here's some I prepared earlier,
Oh,
in Blue Peter fashion. If my sibling lives abroad, can they act as my attorney?
So the answer is yes, but we wouldn't advise it because it becomes really difficult. If someone isn't here to understand, answer questions, deal with your financial affairs, or see you in hospital and say what medication, if they're not here to do it, it's really difficult because they would technically have to come over, and what if they don't want to do that? So yeah, it's possible but not advised.
There was another question that I had, bear with me, and it was about deputyship versus guardianship. What is the difference?
Amy?
Are we even clear what deputies? I'm not clear what they are.
So deputies cover adults.
This is for
So-
lasting powers of attorney.
Yes.
Yeah, so they cover adults who lose capacity, whereas guardianships are usually referred to children. And they're both slower and dearer than arranging a LPA because they take a long process because it has to be signed off by the courts.
Yeah, it's horrendous. If you don't have a power of attorney in place and you lose someone loses mental capacity, then having to get a deputy you have to go to court protection. It's a full court case to eventually get issued the deputy. What's quite unusual is anybody can apply for that. So just think about that. You're living on your own, you lose mental capacity, the guy walks past every day, goes, oh, there's a bit of money in there, who knows what's going on? He can apply to be your deputy and no one else would know about it.
No, only he would know about
Only
it.
he would know about
Because
it.
they don't send any
That's quite
correspondence
That's
to
scary,
the
so,
person.
yeah.
And it's then very difficult for the family to find out
Yeah.
even who the deputy should be
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to.
So, yeah, it's...
So if you've applied for a deputy and then that person tried to apply for a deputy, the court will go, no, this person already has a deputy.
Yes, and that's the first
So
time
that's
you'd
the
find out.
protection.
So if you've got someone who's like living on their own, that someone could be applying for a deputy.
Or in
on them.
residential care.
Or residential, yeah, in residential care, yeah. So
I'm sure it happens.
So what can you do to rectify that?
make sure you've got power of attorney.
Power to-
One person to have.
Yes, yes, you can have working together or backups. Yeah.
Carers and people who are physically unwell. So, should you have more than one person, sort of like,
It's generally advised.
somebody younger as well?
Yes,
Yeah, somebody
definitely.
Somebody younger.
You can have substitutes, you can have attorneys that work together, or the two that are jointly can do whatever they like, but they can both make decisions, and then you can have substitutes underneath who would only step up if something happened to the main attorneys.
And do you give them different areas of responsibility,
can
one
do.
for health and
Yeah.
one for financial? For
Yeah, so we
instance?
do find might be the son's looking after the finances and the daughter's looking after the health and welfare. It's always good to have more than one because of, just making sure no one gets a bit
I-
too
I
carried away.
suppose if you separate it like that, it's a certain check and
It is
balance.
checks and balances,
Because
yeah.
you might have one child who says, I don't want to spend all that money on care, and then if somebody's in charge of health, there's no conflict of interest, is there?
It's
Or
all-
there is a conflict of interest, but at least there's two people fighting from both sides.
It's like anything, there's no perfect solution.
No.
But not having a power of attorney is really bad. The outcomes never good.
What is the difference between lasting power of attorney and power of attorney?
No, it is all, there used to be different types, but now there's just a lasting power of attorney, property and financial affairs, health and welfare.
So,
That's it.
So
You
the
might-
property of the power of attorney doesn't exist anymore.
It's all a power of attorney, but they used to have different names. They used to put the enduring power of attorney was the old version. The modern version of a power of attorney is called the lasting power of attorney. And if someone's got an enduring power of attorney from years ago, it's best to update it because the rules and the regulations of what you can and can't do aren't as good as on the new one. Yeah, you've got more power. I mean, one of the key things you can't do is gift, which you can't do under any power of attorney, but the lasting power of attorneys have got much wider laws on what you can do for that person.
So power of attorney 2.0. that's
It
what
is, yes,
we're
last.
doing.
It's now called lasting power of attorney.
Lasting power of
You can't
attorney.
get enduring, but if you've got one, we suggest updating it to doing a new one.
Is this 7-year rules still there? You know, like they were before.
Still there, yes, absolutely. So
They've
if
got
you
to
gift,
live 7 years,
Yeah.
otherwise they have to pay it back.
yeah, so if you give money away, you've got to live 7 years. They don't have to pay it back, but what happens, it uses up part of your inheritance tax level, not you, you've died,
Yeah.
and if you gave away a lot of money, they might have to pay tax on the gift, and they'll come after them. Then you've got to get into power of attorneys and then move on to long-term care as well, because if you give money away when you're going to care, they can definitely come back after that money. Yeah, if they think you gave it away to avoid paying the care costs.
Actually, it might be worth mentioning at this point that we recently did a webinar on long-term care in conjunction with a local care home group, and that's available online on our YouTube channel, so you can search for that or contact us and we can send you a link if you're interested in watching
Were
that.
you going to cover important documents?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So I wanted to, if there's any more questions, I'll just do a quick wrap up. Is that all right? Anyone got more questions?
Lady there.
Yes.
I believe that with the power of attorney, once the person died, that is the end.
That stops, yeah, then the will takes the full, so the power of attorney while they're alive, and then the will once someone dies.
I just wanted to recap with a tip from each of you. There's one thing that everybody should do or check when they leave this room today. What is it? Amy, what would your tip be?
I would say check what benefits you're entitled to, either by going on the government website or going to a local caring centre or using Turn to Us to know what your entitlement is.
Yeah, because it might have changed. There might be some new things that you didn't know about. That's a good idea. Rachel, your tip?
Wills. Have a will in place. Make sure it's done properly, it's done accurately, and then it's up to date, and you've got your lasting powers of attorney in place as well. So you've got all your paperwork sorted out, you know it's done, and you can just get on with enjoying the
So
sun.
let's do more questions.
That's it.
Based on what you just said, can you do all of it in one place?
Yes.
Rather-
Yeah.
You can. I mean, there's
Yeah.
different. We have to do different documents, but yes, certainly you
Yeah,
can
but
do it. Like we,
same
you know, we do all of it.
We do everything, we do power of attorneys,
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
and that's a good idea. That
And that is
actually
good, yeah.
leads on to what I was going to say, which is a lovely thing. We have a document called My Important Documents, and it's really, really important you keep everything in one place. So when the day comes, whether it's mental capacity being lost or you die, your loved ones can go to one document and see everything. Who is your financial advisor? Who do you bank with? Who is your solicitor or accountant? Passwords. They say don't write passwords down, but I'm afraid you should write the passwords down, because if you don't have your passwords recorded somewhere where a loved one can find them, you're really going to have problems. I mean, you can't get into bank accounts, even getting into someone's email. It can cause huge phones.
Although I
and
might add that
it's-
our document does say on it, do not write your passwords in
It does say
there,
do not write
because
passwords
for
down.
compliance reasons we're told to say that, but that doesn't mean you can't.
It's a real difficult one,
It even, the document even has space for you to put your funeral wishes if you have any.
Yeah.
So we have that in a digital version or a paper-based version. It's free. If anybody would like a copy, let us know. It's just a good one place to write everything down.
Yeah.
How do you store your information? No, it's digitally, but do you have, is it broken down and stored in different places? Is it distributed?
What sort of, so you mean if we were
The
holding
electronic,
Yeah,
so,
so-
is it distributed on different servers, so you can't, not all as a whole?
Right, so and the will company, they have it on their servers and they've got backup, we keep all of our data that we record, it's all on the cloud, and that's all replicated in 2 or 3 different places, so it's not going to get lost, and we have lots of security to ensure that no one can hack it.
Yeah, it's just got my hackers in.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
It's
very well.
Just to make sure it is secure.
Yeah,
But we're
yeah.
very highly regulated
Yes, yeah.
industry, and we have to jump through hoops.
Yeah.
So,
It's just retrieving it that you need to.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's
It's
more.
still going to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be there. This is why the important documents are so important, because we've got clients and we keep records of all their next of kin. We had a client died this week, and we'd already made a trusted relationship with his son. We try to do that as advisors early, before someone's ill. We want to speak to their children and say, are you the child? Yes, which ID you, because when the day comes and they ring in, how do we know they're the child unless we've got a proven, trusted link already? Because it has happened. Little old lady dies, someone rings up and says, I'm the daughter. How do we know? Yeah, send me their money, sort of thing. So it's really important for us to have those links across the generations and the next of kin.
but I think it's worth mentioning, if you do ask for one of these My Important Documents, you don't have to hand the data to us.
No,
You know,
you keep it.
you can
It's for
keep
you.
it, but equally give it to your trusted executive, your trusted person, put it somewhere safe so that when the day comes, somebody will find it and it is
Yeah.
So, well,
Okay.
I think we've covered quite a lot actually, and I
Yeah.
hope you found it helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being a really interesting interactive audience. The questions really help.
Yeah.
And as I say, if anybody would like some follow-up information, we've got a couple of pieces here, or you can give your details to Kelly and we can send you a recording of today if you would like to listen to it again afterwards. We can send you my important documents, and we can send you information on relevant events. This is not marketing. We're not here today to sell our services. This is part of our community outreach, and it's something that we do as a company because we're rooted in this part of South East London, and we want to help the people around us as much as we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will writing, powers of attorney and probate are not part of the Quilter Financial Planning offering and are offered in our own right or by referral. Quilter Financial Planning accept no responsibility for this aspect of our business.